Hello and welcome to the Olfactive Melbourne podcast. I'm your host, Trent Stokes.
And I'm Robyn Stokes. We're a husband and wife team passionate about perfume, and we're on a journey to better understand and explore the art of perfumery. We're coming to you today from Melbourne, Australia, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording. They are the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and we extend that same respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening to the recording today.
On this show, we interview Australia's premier niche, artisanal and indie perfume brands. From the founders to the perfumers and on to the creatives who take us on a guided journey through a fragrance that best represents their brand. The show is wrapped around a masterclass in which we invite our guests to take us through each stage of the opening, the heart, and the base. The show unfolds in real time, meaning that there is time in between the opening and the heart and the base. And this is known as the dry down. During the dry down, we take the opportunity to deep dive into the perfumer's journey, their brand, their mission, their vision, their values, along with getting a better understanding of some of the technical terms in perfumery, along with how to identify individual notes and accords so that we can more deeply connect with perfumery, and also so that we can better identify the notes that we like and dislike. This allows us to make more informed decisions about the fragrances that we connect with and that we ultimately wear. The show is designed to be both educational and entertaining. So if you like what we do, please like and subscribe and make sure to sit back, relax and enjoy the show. The Olfactive Melbourne podcast is proudly sponsored by Watchvault, Australia's premier destination for luxury and vintage timepieces. Each watch is trusted, verified and ready for its next chapter. Visit watchvault.com.au to discover your next timeless investment. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Olfactive Melbourne. This is episode 20 of season 1, and this is actually our season finale. So if you're just tuning into Olfactive for the very first time, this is actually an excellent episode to tune into. This and episode 10. During this episode, we're going to be recapping everything that we've learned through episodes 11 through 19. If you go back to episode 10, we'll take you through episodes through 1 till 9. So if you want to get an express view of all of the various different episodes that we've done, the various different episodes, the different perfumers and perfume houses that we've engaged with, this is a great top-line summary of those fragrances and those perfume houses. So I guess, Robyn, can you believe we've actually made it to episode 20?
I can't. It's been amazing, hasn't it? It's just been so much fun. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me was just, where inspiration comes from in terms of the perfumers. Everybody has a story to tell and a background that kind of filters into how that comes out as creative expression.
Yeah, I think what's really shocked me is, we set out with the goal of deepening our knowledge of perfumery. We've fallen in love with it, and we decided that we wanted to learn more. And what better way to actually learn more than to actually speak to the perfumers, to the perfume houses, and get firsthand, knowledge from them. But I thought by now we would have learned everything that there is to know. But every single episode, we learn something different or several things that we didn't know before, and it just seems like it's an endless amount of knowledge that we're gaining.
That's so true, right? I just feel like I feel very grateful to have just embarked on this journey. As you said, being able to speak to the creatives and the perfumers and experience firsthand masterclasses and all of that knowledge that they so generously share has been just incredible. And I think it's really the more that you learn, the more there is to know. And that's part of this excitement and what keeps me, wanting to do more.
Mm. Yeah, and it certainly is a privilege to be able to talk directly to perfumers, to creative directors, to brand owners, to startups, and we knew this going in, that it was going to be an extreme privilege, and that we wanted to share that with everybody else. And we really hope that we certainly know that we've learnt a lot, but we hope that you've learnt some more too, and that you've deepened your understanding of perfumery, and that's helped you to better and more deeply connect with the perfumes that you purchase and that you wear. That is the point of the podcast.
Yeah, it's been great. And, like what we've also sort of picked up is how much the customer experience means to those creatives and perfumers themselves. They do put a lot of care into not just the fragrances themselves, but actually the packaging and the whole experience that a customer gets when they purchase from their brand.
Yeah, I think going into this, we really were focusing on the juice, weren't we? It was, let's talk about the fragrance itself, but what's sort of unfolded as the season has progressed is that it's the holistic experience of perfume. It's ultimately, we purchase with our eyes first, or we consume with our eyes first. And what we've learnt from a whole variety of different brands that have come onto the show is that there's a lot of effort and thought that is put into the outer packaging, the bottles themselves, not just the bottles, the caps, the spray mechanism and how it sprays, that whole experience, along with obviously the juice itself. It's an end-to-end experience when it comes to perfume.
Yeah, and the sample packs or discovery sets as well have been, there's such just such a broad range of creativity and, as you said, thoughtfulness that goes into creating something that connects with the brand, but also gives the consumer a really amazing opportunity to experience the fragrances.
Absolutely. So what we'd love to do now is, as I mentioned at the opening of the show there, we did do a recap episode midway through the season, and that'll take you through the first sort of 9 or 10 episodes. We're going to take you through episode 11 through to 19 now, and some of the key lessons that we've learnt from each one of the guests, moving in chronological order, starting with episode 11, which I believe was the Cosmic Witch Society with Rhiannon Mapstone.
In episode 11, we met with Rhiannon Mapstone, who is the perfumer and founder of Cosmic Witch Society. Rhi describes her perfumery as artisanal perfumery that blends mysticism with nature and storytelling. One of the things that she spoke about during the episode was rose, and how true, real rose has a very high vibration, and that this actually is evident in science. So it does actually, in fact, lift our spirits. Let's take a listen as Rhi explains to us why she's a rose Puritan.
But there are a lot of good natural isolates that replicate beautiful, soft, dewy rose smell. It just all depends. So for me, I'm a bit of a rose Puritan just because I understand how powerful the smell of real rose is. So there's a little bit of study out there talking about the vibrational frequency of the rose itself and how it really is a bit of a heart opener, or it lifts our spirits when we're feeling a little bit down. And so for me, I'm like, no, I'm putting the real thing in that, because I don't feel like I want to skip that step. And being a witch, I feel like I want everyone to feel good when they wear my perfumes. So I've used a little bit of the different isolates along the way, but predominantly I love working with like a Turkish rose that I've found, and that goes into a lot of things.
There is so much to love about Cosmic Witch Society and a very talented perfumer in Rhiannon Mapstone. One of the things that I loved chatting to Rhi about was her journey and how her journey has evolved over time. So Rhi actually started out with a great intent, and that was to have a look at the toxicity that is apparent in some of the ingredients within perfumery, and look to remove those toxins that might cause hormone disruption and a variety of other things that I believe were interrupting people from getting pregnant. Now, what a great intent to start with. And so she actually started out with natural perfumery. But part of the colour of Ree's story is that as she got deeper into perfumery and started to get an understanding that there are actually safe synthetic materials that you can use, and that by having that broader palette available to you, that you could get even more creative with the construction of perfume, she evolved from being a strictly natural perfumer, which is absolutely fine. And there's many talented natural perfumers out there. I've had many of them on our show, but she expanded her perfume organ and therefore expanded her painting palette to get even more creative with her perfume design. Let's take a look now. We've discussed this on the show before, the idea of, I guess, safe synthetics, and synthetics are an important part of perfumery from a few different perspectives.
Yeah,
So
they really open a perfume up, gives you so much more to play with.
absolutely,
Yeah, it's like restricting your palette, your painter's palette. If you're saying you can only use these 5 colors, but you can't mix them. Yeah,
absolutely. This is, I guess, we got access to synthetics in the 21st century, and prior to that, you were restricted to anything that you could sort of isolate from nature.
Yeah.
And it does provide you with a bit of versatility.
Yeah.
And it helps you with the performance of your perfume.
We also had a fascinating conversation about jasmine and how there's lots of different variations of jasmine and they all smell different, but also that jasmine contains indoles, which have a very distinct smell, which is very attractive to human nose. And then we also spoke a little bit about where else in nature indoles are found. Let's take a listen.
I'm sure as a perfumer, you're constantly learning as well. And every time you learn something new.
tell you the distinctions. So there's lots of different types of jasmine. So predominantly you'll see people use jasmine sambac, which really has that super white floral narcotic type of smell where you expect it in something that's a very sensual style perfume. And jasmine grandiflora brings almost a different type of fresh lightness to it. So yeah, almost like it's the linen of the jasmines, because it has that more clean kind of white floral smell. It's not the sensual white floral. It's not the narcotic white floral. It's a little bit cleaner value to it.
Diverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
It gets so many different smells out of just one flower. It's good.
Jasmine's cool like that.
Yeah, amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's also got really interesting. Well, you know about indoles?
No.
Okay, so indole notes are an interesting one, and they are present in jasmine. And so they're also present in other things in nature. So that's the poo-poo note.
That's what indole. But when they say indolic, that's what they refer to.
Like us, and it's present in lots of different narcotic style florals. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have heard
We've heard that term indolic.
indolic, but never drill into it because some people just say, hey, it's got a sort of fecal type of smell, and it's a little bit clearer that that's the poo-poo note.
It is the poo-poo note, yeah. But for some reason, when it's in the floral, it makes us want to smell it more because it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just we're all animals, we're all animals by nature, and there's something about it that draws us to it.
What an absolutely fascinating episode. We loved having Rhiannon on the show. We look forward to having her back on the show in the future. She's very educated on perfumery, and she certainly taught us a lot. Now, our next guest was Yasin from Awed. In Arabic, Awed means come back. And to Yasin and to the brand, this represents coming back to those favourite locations and memories. It's very much inspired by different locations around the world. It's an absolutely beautiful brand with very specific locations that inspire those perfumes.
Yasin introduced us to the word kananga, which I hadn't heard of up until that point. And specifically, he was talking about kananga being the Australian ilang ilang. Let's take a listen as he explains to me and Trent about kananga.
So, Yasin, you've just mentioned kananga. I'm going to be honest here. I have never heard of Kananga before. That's probably my inexperience. So
Okay.
for other people who might not have experienced Kananga before, what is Kananga?
So Kananga, basically, it's the Australian ylang ylang. It's from the ylang ylang family, like they're planting it in Australia, and it adds like a floral and exotic depth. It has a sweet, rich aroma that helps balance the freshness of the fig, adding complexity and elegance to the opening. It's very smooth and captivating note that draws you deeper into the fragrance.
Mm. You can get a little tiny bit of the floral coming through for me now on the blotter. I can smell it. And I was curious about that note, Kananga, so I did do a little bit of research, and I learnt as well that the ylang ylang tree is also known as the perfume tree, which I didn't know that until I did the research, which was
Yeah.
very interesting.
One of the locations that has inspired one of the fragrances is Nossi Manutra, which is inspired by an island in Madagascar called Nossi B. This is known as the Perfume Island, and we had no idea that this island off Madagascar even existed, let alone was known as the Perfume Island. There are a load of beautiful ingredients from that island, but one that they're very much known for is ylang ylang. Let's take a listen now. Nossi Manutra. Now, this is a really interesting name.
So
Take
this
us
is
through.
Nossi Manutra is an island in Madagascar. It has the best ylang ylang and also, of course, vanilla. And by the way, Nossi Manutra, by the language, the Malayan language in Madagascar, the island itself, it's called Nossi B. Okay. But in their language, Nossi Manutra means the scented island because it's full of scents because of the fruits, the ylang ylang, the vanilla. So that's why we named it Nossi Manutra.
A noteworthy feature of the Arwed brand is the inclusion of a 6 ml perfume oil, which comes in the box with the 100 ml fragrance. This is an amazing travel-friendly option for you to appreciate should you purchase the full bottle, but it also can help you to boost or elevate the fragrance if you apply it first and then have the fragrance over the top. Let's take a listen as Yasin tells us about it.
And by the way, so we are with every perfume set, we're just sending a small 6 ml pure oil for this reason, actually, particularly like if you want to boost the scent in the middle of the day or something, you can just apply it. Or if you're traveling, no need to take the whole bottle with you because we know that 100 ml is very difficult to take while you're traveling.
And finally, Yasin gave us his view on what we would refer to as clones or dupes. Yasin refers to these as twists. Now, he doesn't have a fundamental issue with clones or dupes, but he just did not want this for his own brand. And so as he was going out and seeking perfumers who could help him construct his vision of this travel-themed brand, the first encounter that he had was with people wanting to produce these twists, and it's not something that he actually wanted. We've got him to seek out his master perfumer, Shadi. So let's take a listen now. I guess making the decision to start a brand, get in contact with a perfumer or contract a perfumer, start to manufacture perfume and then distribute it at scale, that's no small decision. So I guess what inspired you to create a brand and then launch it out onto the market?
So what inspired me to launch a new brand? I found that unfortunately the market now is full of dupes and twists, which is, in my opinion, it's destroying the industry of creating a piece of art like the perfumes. And also at the same time, as I said earlier, the perfume is the quickest thing to transport you from a place to another in just like a minute or a moment. So that's why I tried to create something, and that was one of my conditions when I met to be honest with you, this is the second perfumer, because I went to another like a first perfumer. I'm not a perfumer, so I don't know how to create perfumes. So I wanted one perfumer, a well-known perfumer at the beginning, and I asked them to create perfumes for me to transport me from a place to another. And he chose the easy path and gave me some twists. So I rejected working with him, and I went to another, which is he started creating perfumes from scratch. I know it's a bit like a complicated process, but I really respect this piece of art.
In episode 13, we met with Corey Vigel from Vigel Perfumery. And we were really blown away because Corey has just created such a huge range of perfumes in a very short period of time, while also becoming a new dad. It was great to hear from Corey, and when he explained to us how he developed his sense of smell. Let's hear about that. Corey, did you find that your nose evolved as you learned more and explored fragrances and scents more?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even before I had like a pretty good nose, like good at like smelling stuff out, like especially with food. I'll be eating food. I'm like, oh, it's definitely got some of this in there or some of this in there. And like, how are you tasting that? I'm like, I can smell it. And I remember like as a kid, like smelling, flowers and all the different stuff in the cupboard and eating is smelling everything. Even now I still like, smell whatever I'm eating and then, eat it. It might be a little bit weird, but I like to smell things. And yeah, definitely since, getting all the single aroma chemicals and smelling them individually, all of it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, oh, this is what I've been smelling for like the last 10 years in X perfume or in laundry detergent and, floor cleaner and everything like that. So yeah, after I started going through all the single materials, things started making sense. And then, yeah, definitely think that having those there, it definitely helps with being able to pick up things.
So Corey's obviously a very talented perfumer and able to produce, absolutely wonderful perfumes that we've very much enjoyed. His focus on education, though, really came out with this very innovative collaboration that he did with another brand called Jaloo. So he's actually produced the Vagal Cross Jaloo Nose Training Kit. And this is something that we very much gel with here on the show because we're all about perfume education as well. The nose training kit is exactly as it sounds. It's designed to help you be able to smell raw ingredients and then be able to better identify those in perfume. Let's take a look at how to use that kit right now. So you did a fairly significant collaboration with, is it Jaloo?
Yes.
So Jaloo Cross Vigel, and you put together a nose training kit. Was that some of the inspiration of your journey to sort of understand those individual notes? Is that what you were trying to sort of share with the broader audience?
Definitely. Like when I was putting it together, like I had the idea and I really like when I was trying to explain perfumes to people, I'd be talking about the single molecules and like aroma chemicals. And I'm like, yeah, like it smells like this. Like if you smell this perfume, it's what you're smelling. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying. And I kind of probably sound like a crazy person trying to be like, dihydromercenol or galaxolide and like trying to just be like, this is what this smells like. And another thing was there was a lot of frustration when I started doing this. There was no like, a box that just had the popular stuff in there that I could just get, smell, and be like, oh, okay, this is what this is. I need to get more of this so I can add it to the stuff that I'm working on. So yeah, it was born out of frustration and just to try and help people to understand like what goes into their perfumes, and so that when they do smell it, they have that, hopefully they have that same like brain click eureka moment where it's like, I've smelt this so many times and now it makes sense to me why I've smelt it, because it's one of the most popular materials that are used in the perfumes. So that's kind of the mentality behind that box.
We also had an interesting discussion about fig as an accord. So it is a synthetic accord because fig oil doesn't exist. So you cannot have a natural fig, which we didn't know. This is actually a really good example of how artistry and science combine to create a perfect accord. Let's take a listen as Corey explains to us how he created the fig accord. Corey, is it a note or is it an accord? How have you gone about doing the fig note?
So you are not allowed to use natural fig oil in your fragrances. Well, you can, but it's restricted by IFRA. So when you smell fig in a fragrance, most of the time it'll be an accord. So this is one that I put together. I was one day sitting there wanting to make like a really nice kind of natural green fig, inspired by my wife's nonnel's garden. He's got really nice fig trees growing in the garden, and I was just there smelling the leaves and smelling the fruit, more so the leaves that really kind of grabbed me. So I kind of wanted to recreate what I remember those trees smelling like.
That's quite intriguing. I didn't realize that IFRA sort of restricts the use of real fig. Do you know why that might be the case?
I believe it's like it can cause sensitization. So it can cause, skin irritations or rashes. I don't know when they restricted it, but I think it was a little while ago.
Yeah.
Amazing. So if we weren't able to put together accords and use synthetic ingredients, we'd be a little bit restricted with the actual ingredients we could use for these types of reasons. And finally, Corey helped us to identify a very particular note, and that note is galbanum, which has been described as intensely green. Let's take a look now as Corey helps us to be able to identify galbanum in fragrances.
Definitely getting that very green, stemmy galbanium. So galbanium is like a nice, I can't explain it, but it's kind of like a fan, how it kind of fans out and has all these like nice little yellow flowers over the top of it. It's kind of hard to, it's kind of a little bit peppery and like spicy. It's got like this really kind of punchy note to it. And it's kind of got that like kind of sticky kind of, you smack like some plants on your hand and you get that really green, sticky kind of, resin on your hand. That's what's kind of coming through now.
In episode 14, we met with Zachariah Ibn Hussein, who is the perfumer and founder at Anomalous Parfum. And Zachariah is just an amazing storyteller who really takes a huge amount of inspiration from historical stories from the Bible, from Egypt, and from mythology. Not only does he get inspired by the story, but he also sources ingredients that are connected to the place or the story itself. On top of that, he visualizes color and connects the ingredients to make up the fragrance using color as another source of inspiration. Let's have a listen as he explains this to us.
Like, for example, if I were to work with chypres, it's mostly green. If I were to work with fougere, it's mostly purplish. Iris is purple. So when I categorize a color to a fragrance, it just makes it easier for me to find ingredients which are similar in a similar palette. So with this one, it was mostly brown, dark yellowish. So for me to find colors that associate with that was something, I had to also research and gather and put together.
It's almost like you're painting a picture as
true.
you're structuring your fragrance. One of the real standouts with Zachariah is his absolute dedication to utilizing the highest quality ingredients. It's almost an obsession with him. I think one of the things that he said to us on the show during the episode is, once you've smelt those high quality ingredients, it's nearly impossible to use something that is sub-quality. I think that was really demonstrated when he spoke to us about a 75-year-old rose extract that was actually lost. It was lost in time and rediscovered, and now is being sold in very small quantities. And he got his hands on some of that ingredient that he now infuses into his perfumes. Let's take a look now. So there's a bit of a story. You sort of alluded to it before, but give us a bit of detail around this very special note.
So this rose that was used, it's from 1915. So they distilled it, they put it in a metal can, and then they lost the bottle. So they kept it. The family, whoever distilled it, forgot about it. So they kept it in the attic, and it stayed there for generations. So when I heard about it, I didn't know that there can be rose that old, and because the heart note is basically the queen. And it's such a special occasion for our anniversary and my daughter's birthday. I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna use any rose, it can't be just a random Bulgarian rose. It has to be something special. So there is a forum called Udict. So it's where all the artisanal people come together and they sell their stuff. So one of the guys there attained that bottle. He attained it through his friend who's from that same family, and he took the bottle. He paid him a price, and he started selling it. And people in that artisanal community started buying in bulk amount because this thing will come and never come back.
I know.
So I was only able to get like 45 grams because it was so expensive. If you were to get a gram of Bulgarian rose, the normal average ones, it's probably like $35 a gram or $30 a gram. This one turned out to be $72 a gram. So for me to go and purchase 45, it's like giving whatever I earn, I'm giving back to the perfumery. So, and my wife was like, "Are you sure about it? You want to spend so much on just rose, 45 grams? That's like a glass of water."
So unique though. You'll never get that fragrance again. So what, a 75-year-old fragrance?
Yeah, it's a
essentially.
75-year-old rose absolute.
Absolutely.
And because it's been aging for so long, it became dark yellow, and it started giving off honey notes. So I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna represent the queen with that rose, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it even more special. So what artisanal perfumers do is that they usually macerate rose and musk together. So if you were to just use rose and musk separate, it would be a different olfactory experience. I think that would be a different experience overall. But what I did is that I took the rose absolute and put the musk in it, and I let it be in it for like I don't know, like 7-8 months. And what happened was that the essence from the musk went in the rose. So now you have a rose which is super yellow, super honey, but then as you put it, it starts getting dirtier, like a bit of like, how do I explain it? It's like it becomes a bit animalic. So that's how the grief is represented in the story. So like, not grief, but sorrow.
It's also very interesting to hear from Zachariah how he studies accords. So there is an analytical technique that's used in perfume chemistry called the GCMS. Listen as he explains to us what this is and how he uses it.
GCSM.
Well,
I get confused with that term because
what does that stand for?
I'm not sure about the full term.
Is it a college or
No. It's basically the formula. So they run the formula through gas chambers, and then they extract what molecule was used. Because you smell a fragrance that might have like 50, 60 molecules, but then you'd never be able to pinpoint what exactly it has.
Oh,
So
okay.
how I study fragrances is that I buy formulas from people who who did that test to find out what it has, and then I see how they made those specific accords, and then I create those accords. I see, if I change one ingredient, how it affects it. If I change a different ingredient, how it affects the entire composition. So that's how I've been learning perfumery.
Fantastic. So this is so this process that you've just described is effectively how we reverse engineer a fragrance. So if you were, say, a clone house, for instance, you would use that process so that you could recreate some of the more popular fragrances that were out there, but you're using it to understand, to study and really to sort of understand, what is it that I'm smelling here? Especially when we talk about things like accords, for instance, they're made up of multiple different molecules that represent the essence of a smell. And finally, one of the key sort of discoveries that we made as we were talking to Zachariah about his fragrances was in The Last Light of Thieves, which is the newest fragrance that was released this year. It was actually released on the 1st of November. Now, this particular fragrance, rather than using perfumers' alcohol as the carrier of the perfume oil, he actually uses orris tincture root, which provides both greater longevity and greater projection in the perfume. Let's take a look now.
And then the entire fragrance is not diluted in alcohol. This is diluted in orris tincture. So to give it more oomph, I guess. Orris tincture is also used in perfumery. It kind of like gives a supernatural lift. It becomes very airy when you put it. So what I did is I created an orris tincture. I bought orris powder and then put it in alcohol and let it macerate and tincture for like a year. And then the entire composition was then the alcohol was replaced with the tincture.
It's quite it's dense but light at the same time.
Yeah, that's because of the orris tincture. So if I were to use just alcohol, it would be very dense. It would kind of make you cloyed, I guess, cloying
Yeah.
to the people around you. But this is made using orris tincture, which kind of gives that airy lift. Doesn't make it
Elevate.
cloying, but it kind of like spreads the entire fragrance, spaces the ingredient out.
This edition of Olfactive Melbourne is proudly brought to you by Silver Australia. Silver Australia design and shape their jewellery in their studio in Melbourne, and they're pleased to offer Olfactive Melbourne listeners 20% off when you use the code MASA20. In episode 15, we met with Kevin and Marcelo, who are the founders of Olfactive Traveller. Olfactive Traveller is a brand new Australian perfume house inspired by travel across different countries, but in this particular collection, it's the Italian collection. And it is connected to their KM Fragrance Adventure Tours, which they have been running for about 4 years. It was really fantastic to hear about their philosophy, which is all about slowing down and really taking in the surrounds that you're in this case, Italy. I loved how Kevin and Marcelo talked to us about the notes within the fragrances. And because they didn't feel that the fragrances followed the top, hot and base notes, they removed the notes from the packaging because they felt like instead of having a linear approach to fragrance, it was more circular. And that was definitely our experience as we engaged with the fragrance and it evolved on our skin. Take a listen as Kevin explains.
When we were sitting and designing it, it was funny that we're going through it as a perfume pyramid. And as we were discussing, we were chatting to Luca, Marcel was like, the way that we experience the fragrances, particularly this collection here, isn't actually so much a pyramid in top, middle, and heart. And so when I was designing the box, which the customers will see on the side, I've actually erased off top, heart, and base. And we've just listed all the main notes to it. Because I do find that, just as Robyn said, even after hours, you'll still get lingering notes of the orange and stuff, even though it's in the top. But it doesn't really do its traditional way of evolution.
Yeah, it's not really linear.
Yeah, it's kind of circular.
Yeah, absolutely. And wow, when it comes to attention to detail with packaging, Olfactive Traveller really takes it to the next level. Thought has gone into absolutely every aspect of the packaging, from the outer box to the perfume bottle to the cap, even to the discovery set, which is extraordinarily unique. It's not something that we've actually seen before in our travels through perfumery. Rather than it being a discovery set, it is more of a travel set, which aligns with the Olfactive Traveller. Take a look at this very, very unique experience now.
I guess the challenge was for us, and also personally for me, being in the business now for 8-9 years, I wanted to do something really different, really groundbreaking. And so trying to think of a discovery set. How can I make a discovery set for our brand that stays on brand, that shows our heart in it? And so our discovery set is actually really unique. Our discovery set is not just a regular, box with the 2 mils. It fits into our brand, Olfactive Traveller. It's a leather. It's an all 100% leather.
I love Robyn.
I love Robyn
doing the thing that I was hoping you would do.
It's a leather travel case. That is our discovery set with 8 mil vials.
So feel free to take it out.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So,
Take that out.
so
There's also like a really nice designed info card there as well that we put for the customer just to get a better idea of the 3 fragrances.
absolutely stunning. Well, you've really done an amazing job.
That's
This
Kevin.
is gorgeous.
All of that is
Yeah.
Kevin. I can't take any.
So you really don't do things by halves, do you?
Yeah.
There's no cut a corner there, save a bit of cost there. No, we've got the full leather pouch with the full travel size.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
So
gorgeous.
this will give
It's
people a
amazing.
chance to experience the fragrance if they want to test all 3 of them. Pelle Viola will be part of that. So
Another enlightening topic that we covered with Kevin and Marcelo was around mutual trust and understanding as you work together with a perfumer to create the full brief of what your vision is. And this came out as we were asking the question, what does the 271 in Roma 271 mean?
We kept that for Kevin. But the real heart of this fragrance is all Marshall's vision for this perfume. The 271, going back to that, is actually something that ties in a little bit to how many iterations it took us to reach this. It's actually a part of the codes and stuff. So to Luca, it means something. To us, it means something. But actually, for the viewers, for the audience, if you search up Rome 271, it will show you a lot of history, and it was a very
271 was a crucial.
Yeah,
it was a pivotal year. We want have a look at that. It's pretty awesome. It was really the way the universe all sort of bump came together. Because then when you look at it, you're like, oh wow, this was meant to be. So
okay, so it's all just come together with you with all of the I guess the iterations that you had, along with the history of Rome.
There's multiple little things in there. It's pretty wild.
And Kevin and Marcelo's dedication to quality doesn't just stop with the packaging, with that beautiful travel set that you just saw earlier. They are dedicated to the highest quality ingredients. Now, we talk about high quality ingredients on this show all the time, but how do you actually measure the quality of a high quality ingredient? I think in this section of the show, we've got a really good example of how we definitively measure the quality of an ingredient. And that can be demonstrated through their use of Blue Farm Iris, in which quality is determined by the actual iron content within the iris itself. Let's take a look now.
Yeah. And then he goes, the iris that we have, the highest quality iris from Iris Blue Farm, is 65,000 euros a kilo.
Oh my God.
You can put it in your formula, but it's going to blow your budget like way off. And all I get from this guy next to me is this squeezing of my elbow, squeeze like under the camera so no one can see it. He's squeezing me and he gets a pen and he writes down, we have to have this. Oh my God.
He was working the budget. So he's working the budget with all this. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to, but you got to get this. How did it happen? We got to get this. I don't want to hear about, I don't want this compound. I want this iris. And this is the other thing too, that it's a small farm, 1.3 ton per year. That's all they're able to get.
Yeah, it's a very small batch.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we said to him, all right, thank you for the price. Can you make it? He goes, well, let me get back to you because I don't have a lot left from this year's harvest.
Yeah.
Yeah. The particular harvest from this year's batch that we have bottled, for those who might not know, the iron percentage is what determines the quality of the iris harvest. And for most batches, you might get a harvest that's about 8% to 20%. Luca has done the assessment with AFM. For this particular harvest is sitting at 22%, much, much higher than any other iris quality that we would be able to get. And so he said, I'll check in with you guys next week. I'll see how much that we have left. Because we had the Zoom call. You remember when we had our meeting and we thought that we were finished?
Yeah.
It was actually at the end of the harvest already. We checked in with him again the following week, and he's like, boys, I have enough to squeeze in for you guys with your formula, 500 bottles.
That's it.
That's
Until the next harvest,
Yeah.
we've got, that's all we can produce.
And that's why we created this. So this was just a cool little certificate of authenticity, just to certify that the iris in Pelle Viole in your bottle is from Iris Blue Farm, the exclusive farm of AFM. And at the back, it's going to be hand signed by us to certify it, and we're going to handwrite the number of bottles.
Well,
so it's like we're not going to make like
so they're going to show it
3,000 bottles,
limited edition.
In episode 16, we met with Katrina Cochran, who is the founder and perfumer at Archer Farrar Perfume Atelier. And she is a specialist in botanical perfumery, and her work is very much connected to storytelling and nature. During this episode, we were exposed to some new extraction techniques that we were relatively unfamiliar with. One of the ones that I loved to hear about was the ancient technique of enfleurage. Let's hear from Katrina as she explains what enfleurage is and how she uses it.
Old ancient technique of extracting the scent from flowers, and how it is done is the fat extracts scent from flowers. And so if you can find like a deodorized fat, these days I used deodorized coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, and you lay a really thin layer of that over like a mirror or just a glass base. And so that's lay it down when it's liquid, it solidifies. And then if you put flowers on top of that, this is how I make my gardenia, by the way. If you put flowers on top of that and you cover it totally with flowers, say jasmine, you can do it with rose, you can do it with anything. They might not all work so well, but you can do it with pretty much anything. And you change the flowers every 24 hours, and you then smell the deodorized coconut oil, the fat. It will have absorbed the scent of the flowers. So you keep changing the flowers, say every 24 hours for up to 2 weeks or more, and the fat, it becomes sort of at its capacity with scent. And so then you've got this really highly, beautifully scented fat. And then you scrape the fat off, and you put that fat in with pure alcohol, or 95% alcohol, 96% alcohol, as pure as you can get. And you leave it, you sort of heat it gently. You can leave it on a windowsill, shake it up. And the alcohol then absorbs the scented material from the fat. And then you cool it down, and you can decant the alcohol off that now has absorbed all the scent. And so you end up with a lovely, a scented alcohol, which is called the enfleurage straight. If you have a lot of that, you can then evaporate the alcohol off, and you're left with a concrete or an absolute, which is a really highly scented, sort of like a waxy kind of gooey substance, which is the highly, highly scented flower material.
Wow, we learnt so much from Katrina around extraction techniques and how to actually construct a perfume. Now, through the perfume journey that we've been on, we were under the impression that there was only really one way to build a perfume, and that was from the base up. However, Katrina educated us on the fact that there's many, many different ways in which you can actually construct a perfume, and she demonstrated this through what is known as the tri-parfum method. Let's take a look now.
I don't build from the base up. I think perfumers work in a lot of different ways. Some perfumers work in what they call, I think it's like the tri-parfum method, which is they really build around 3 ingredients that they know they want to, and they might be a mixture of base, middle, top. They might be all top, they might be all heart, they might be all base, and they build a perfume outwards from that. So there are many, many different ways of building a perfume, or a natural perfume. I can't speak for anything else.
Another highlight of this episode was the ability for us to understand a little bit more about raw ingredients and how they transform to become part of the final formula of a perfume. Take a listen as we explore some raw ingredients with Katrina.
So in doing our research on jonquil, we did note that jonquil can be quite a difficult ingredient to work with, particularly the jonquil absolute. What sort of challenges did it present to you, and how did you actually tame it inside of the fragrance?
So this is where I'm going to geek out on botanicals and extraction methods. So hopefully I explain it in an okay way, because I love this. And if I'm going, please stop me if I'm boring you, because that can happen. So jonquil it's not that it's a really difficult absolute to work with. It just smells, the absolute extract smells quite different to the flower. And there's a reason for this. I can give you a really basic lesson on extraction techniques in natural perfumery, which might be helpful. We've all heard of an essential oil, which is normally...
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I will go into this in a bit more detail when we go and test some ingredients later. But generally, it's an essential oil. It's a cold, you can have like a cold press, which is like you do with citrus fruits. Think about how you get the olive oil out of olives. You squash them. So you do citrus. Essential oil, that's normally a steam distillation technique to extract the scent. And then we have these things called absolutes. And absolute is when you solvent extract the scent from the botanical material or the plant material. And so usually the solvent is called hexane. And so you put all these flowers in with this solvent. It's sort of like what I was saying with enfleurage before. The scent goes into the solvent, and then you wash the solvent with alcohol. The scent transfers from the solvent into the alcohol. Then you evaporate the alcohol off, and you end up with the absolute, which is the scented material. However, here's the thing. When you've got really fragile flowers like, what's great is tuberose, another great example, jonquil, boronia, a lot of the tiny little beautiful fragrant molecules that you smell when you actually smell the flower, they don't make it through the extraction process. So they get, because if there's heat applied, they die off. They don't make it to the final absolute, the final fragrant material. And so what we smell, the absolute that we smell, is generally a lot darker than the living flower. It's quite animalic, it's quite leathery. I've sent you a sample of what the jonquil absolute smells like by itself. It's sort of dark. You can smell the pollen, sort of a polleny kind of sweetness, but it is quite leathery. It's quite green in a dark way. It's quite vegetal. It doesn't smell like that light, that lovely light freesia style flower, and that which I wanted to recreate in the perfume. And so what you have to do as a perfumer is you have to build this jonquil absolute into an accord that smells like the living flower, which I did for this perfume. And the jonquil accord I created is the heart of the fragrance, and so it's quite light though.
Yeah, while Robyn's applying that, just to show our viewers how this has come, how you've sent them to us, these beautiful little bottles.
Yeah. And so a CO2 extraction, whereas steam distillation or hydrodistillation heats the botanical matter up. And so just in the heating process, you're going to lose some of the aroma, tiny little fragile aroma chemicals. CO2 extraction is fantastic. It is when put so much pressure on the carbon dioxide that it becomes liquid, and then they put the plant material in with the liquid CO2. This liquid CO2 absorbs the scented material, and then they evaporate the CO2, and you are left off. And so you're just left with the scented material, but it hasn't been heated. And so you are left with the most incredible representation of the living, breathing plant. And if you smell that, that's juniper berry too. So vastly
It smells so different, doesn't it?
Extremely different.
So different.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's mellower. I call it's a lower octave. It's more like a harp note. It's darker. It smells just like the juniper berry that you with. It's not so it's lost the.
It smells, doesn't have that piney, as much of the pininess to it.
No, it's not as fresh smelling. It's more rich and I would almost say honeyed.
It's cold to my nose.
It's so cold, isn't
That's
it?
what I'm
Almost
getting,
peppery. Which you get from juniper berries when you cook with it.
I can't believe how dramatically different these two are. It's amazing. Just from the extraction technique.
Yeah.
Amazing. And just to round out our education on extraction and distillation methods, Katrina takes us through the process of tinctures. Let's take a look now.
But, a tincture is when you put something in alcohol, and the alcohol being a solvent draws out the scent. And so you end up with a tincture, then it's the scented alcohol that way. So you can tincture flowers as well. But I think tincturing works better with herbs and things like that.
In episode 17, we met with Milano. Now, Milano are an amazing Tasmanian brand that have a beautiful range of non-toxic fragrances, and they really champion natural ingredients and sustainability, not just globally, but specifically from Tassie.
So a really interesting part of the conversation was around Milano's philosophy on using synthetics rather than solely essential oils in their perfumes. Marika spoke to us about sometimes getting a hard time from consumers that aren't fully educated on essential oils. And I think she put it quite nicely in that essential oils are simply the essence of the plant, not essential to good health. And this sort of speaks to some of the misconceptions around synthetics. And I think Marika really takes it to the next level by making sure that she fully understands absolutely every element of what goes into a perfume and is very careful at how she crafts it to ensure that there are no unknown interactions that might happen with our body, which is why she does like to use isolates. Let's take a look now.
Our position is we use synthetics where necessary for the prevention of animal cruelty because it's one of our business ethics. It's in our ethos that everything that we do has to be for the prevention of animal cruelty. So musk is always, and now I believe musk is banned worldwide anyway, but you still do get illegal poaching. But we believe that just because something, and this is actually a scientific fact, essential oil is the essence of a plant, not essential for good health. So people need to understand that the TGA and FDA have listed essential oils as a chemical and they have their own CAS number. So when you have a chemical in Australia, it doesn't matter whether it's essential oil, an absolute, an isolate, or any other synthetic, it has its own CAS number, which means it is a chemical number. So what we have found when we talk to people at the market, we've had people be abusive towards us because they go, well, essential oils are natural and they're healthy. And it's like, no, essential oil means it's an essence of the plant. It doesn't mean it's essential for good health and the maintenance of good health. And that is the big difference. And our position on it is that we use isolates because it's the scent extra. And then I blend the isolates because the medicinal component has been removed, which is often what is toxic.
Marika also taught us about a perfumery method which she refers to as fining and filtering. This is when she uses clay to filter out the residue from thick and sticky resins. Let's take a listen as she explains.
So I don't know if anyone else you've talked to has talked about a process that we do. It's called fining and tuning. Fining and filtering. Have you ever heard of that term?
No.
Okay, so because Macy grows quite a bit of our plants, herbs and things that I do use, I have some different extraction processes that I do. And with that, I have to do a fair bit of what we call is fining. And the same thing happens when we buy raw ingredients that are quite thick and resinous, or they leave. Have you ever worked with benzoin or seen benzoin? It's the same. It kind of goes sticky and leaves a residue. Some of the more thicky resins do, thick kind of resins. So I have this process of where when I make it into perfume, so from the mother scent to the perfume with the alcohol, I use a special clay. It's a really fine clay, and I put that in the perfume and let it settle to the bottom, and it has to be done in a fridge for 24 hours. And the reason I do that is to remove all the residue, and it drops all to the bottom and takes all that out. So that makes the process just that other step that you have to do, fining and filtering, and then you have to filter it. So you have your bottle of your perfume, I use the big ambers, and then I tip the clay in, and then the clay, it's very fine powder, it moves through and it drags down all of the residue to the bottom, but it takes 24 hours. So the next day, you have to then filter it. So you remove it all, and then there's just all the residue left in the bottom, and then you have to filter it. So those particular items can be a little bit tricky to work with when you use anything thick like that.
And finally, we touch on what is possibly a slightly controversial topic, and that is IFRA's intent to potentially ban the use of heliotrope in fragrance. Now, for those perfume lovers out there, you'll know that heliotrope is a core ingredient across a range of perfumes from niche to designer, and that's obviously going to have an absolutely massive impact on the industry. But what was really interesting in terms of Marika's take on the use of heliotrope and the potential ban is that scientists, or particularly chemists, are just going to have to get a little bit more creative about how they approach, and that will see perfumery take that sort of next evolutionary leap, certainly when it comes to heliotrope. Let's take a look now.
I don't know if you guys know, but with heliotrope, there's a lot of controversy at the moment. So we have to use an accord. We actually were growing heliotrope, but the EU have decided in its strange wisdom to ban heliotrope because of the constituents. But the thing is that when they start banning a lot of things, then obviously really great chemists have to become very creative. And this is where I'd like to move into as well when I finish my natural medicine, is I want to start looking at how to make my own healthy synthetics. So when it comes to things like heliotrope, we're going to have to start to be a little bit more creative in how do we produce heliotrope in a safe way. So I've got a chemist in New Zealand that sort of found a nice, safe way to make something that's similar to heliotrope, just gives it that. Because it is, have you smelled a real heliotrope?
I don't think we ever have.
No, I don't think so.
Do you know?
If we have, we don't know we have.
Okay, well, it's a little purple flower. It's a little, it's a dark green foliage and beautiful purple flower. But when you smell it, it's one of those things that you go, okay, I know why the creator created aromatherapy, right? It's just amazing to smell the real thing. And when we talk to people, we always show them pictures, and we like to people to have an understanding of what they're smelling in perfume and really get involved with it, because nature is so amazing. But when you smell real heliotrope, it makes you wonder why. But obviously there's something in the constituents that EU aren't happy with, and they control IFRA. So we always have to, even though we're not that heavily regulated in Australia, perfumers still try to work within the limits of what IFRA recommend, just so that you're keeping on the safe side. So heliotrope, unfortunately, is going to be one of those that's going to be banned eventually in Australia.
In episode 18, we met with Trung Vu, who is the founder and perfumer at Grimoire Parfum, which is a brand new Australian fragrance house that's really done an amazing job of storytelling and bringing everything together to create a full experience around the Grimoire story. This includes an amazing discovery set, customized packaging, including customized lids and bottles. And it was very interesting to hear Trung's view on the challenges of creating a brand that has customized packaging. Let's take a listen.
Ready, because you're never fully ready. You just have to take the leap of faith at some point.
Yeah.
So that's when I felt like, right, it's time to give it my all, put my time and effort full time into creating this world of perfumery and grimoire. And there was a few reasons it kind of took so long. One was capital. Like, takes a lot of money, especially if you want to do any form of customization, as I've learned. The amount you have to order is kind of insane.
Is that the customization of the bottles?
It's also the bottles, the labels, the boxes,
The
Everything.
the ribbon, the blotters, the bag. So there's always a minimum purchasing order for customization, which is, it's a kind of, how do you call it, like a hurdle for a lot of brands or kind of brand owners out there getting started. Like, it does take a lot of capital. And yeah, I'm kind of glad I was very frugal over the last 5-6 years, and I had the contingency to save extra just in case I needed to spend more, because I actually probably end up spending about almost 3 times more than what I anticipated.
So as I mentioned at the very top of this show, I really thought by this stage of the Perfume Podcast that we will have learnt everything that there is to learn about distillation techniques and extraction techniques. But no, there is more to learn. And Trung introduced us to this idea of destructive distillation, which is really quite a unique and interesting distillation technique. Let's take a look now. So you also mentioned, as we were going through those notes, a very strange sounding ingredients. Is it choya labom?
Yeah, choya loban.
What is that?
It is kind of only an ingredient you see in artisanal work and independent brands. You'll kind of see it every now and then from a lot of independent brands. Rare peculiar material, not something you see in commercial perfumery just because it's not produced at that volume. Like, it's not scalable in a sense. But it is pretty much frankincense turned into a tar. So choya it's an ancient distillation technique that falls under the category of destructive distillation. Destructive distillation, you've experienced some of destructive distillation before. There's not very many. There's probably only 4 or 5 that I know of. It is the process of when material is kind of heated at high temperature in a vacuum with no oxygen. And what happens is, when the kind of aromatic essence kind of starts to seep out, it gets burnt and it transforms into something completely new. So 2 examples that you probably know of destructive distillation is a birch tar. So it's usually your tars. So birch tar is one, and also cade oil as well. Yeah, the problem with those 2 examples are they actually produce a lot of carcinogens as well, called PAHs,
Okay.
polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So when you use those materials, you have to buy rectified versions where they have those compounds removed. And even then, it's still restricted to like near nothing, but you don't need that much. It's such a powerful material. So choya is a similar kind of method. It's the same kind of burning of the material, but it's done in earthenware. And the other choya is choya nak, which I use in one of my fragrances as well. And that is burning of crushed seashells. And it's a co-distillate of sandalwood as well. So it's actually burnt together.
So interesting. Continuing on from that, he also introduced us to jewel distillation, which is another method. Let's take a listen now as he explains what it's all about.
And yeah, the incense I'm using is actually a co-distillate. Have you guys kind of gone through co-distillates before?
No, never heard of it.
Yeah, so co-distillates, they are when two materials are actually extracted at once. So this is Wild and Song from Robert Hair, and it is a co-distillation of olibanum or frankincense, as well as cedarwood.
Wow.
So it has a very different character than when you take two oils and blend them together. I'm not a chemist, but yeah, something happens at a molecular level when you distill it together. And the way I think about it is like, it's kind of like when you cook two ingredients together versus adding two different sauces together.
Okay, so it more integrates.
Correct.
Now, if you've been listening to this show and the various different episodes in which we've discussed IFRA, we know the importance of IFRA in terms of it regulating the industry and ensuring that we're all safe when we wear our perfumes. But Trung took us through the next level of really understanding IFRA regulations and introduced us to Annex 2. Let's take a listen now.
For those that don't know, IFRA stands for the International Fragrance Association, and it's kind of like a self-regulating body for the perfume industry because the government doesn't really get involved, which is a good thing. That's the silver lining because the government will probably impose a lot more strict rules and regulations for ingredients. So IFRA, it is purely a recommendation of what you should and shouldn't use, but there is kind of logic behind it as well. There is research and study and a lot of toxicology behind it, toxicological data, and it serves a function for safety and limiting liability as well. So I think there is a misconception, and I was of this school of belief as well before I created my brand or started building the brand, that non-compliance would mean or rebelling against it would mean there'll be more creative freedom and more artistic value to your work. But when you actually start reading everything and you understand why IFRA exists and the purpose it serves, it doesn't really apply too much to Australia, but actually only applies in the EU or EU countries. But as a business, you have to make that decision. For me, in my mind, before I even started perfumery, I always said to myself that I would love to have my creations be taken to an international stage. So part of that means compliancy as well, or being compliant to EU. And EU it's the toughest kind of rule set there is. And it's a conscious business decision you have to make. But upon kind of after formulating, working with my perfumes and creating them, it's actually not as stringent as people think it is. There is a lot of freedom and you still have a lot of leeway to work with a lot of different materials. And there's a lot of substitutes as well that you could easily work with. I kind of think it's like coloring within the lines. And yeah, I feel like I haven't really sacrificed any creative outlet or whatever you want to call it, kind of creative energy by being compliant. And I actually think it's quite important as well. Like when you read these things, like, granted you take it with a grain of salt because these restrictions are probably a lot more strict than they need to be, but that's just, again, better safe than sorry, as if with anything. Same with like civil engineering, for example, amount of weight something can carry is usually that is explicitly stated is probably 5 times lower than what you can actually load. So it's the same with IFRA. But when you read the kind of data and the reason why things are banned, it makes sense. There's carcinogens, of course, there's genotoxins, photosensitivity, allergens, sensitizers, all things that can affect the human body. But again, you do have to take a grain of salt. And I think for any new perfumers out there or brands out there that are being non-compliant, my word of advice is just to do your research first and your due diligence to understand why these rules and regulations exist. And then you can kind of bend the rules intelligently. I think if you're non-compliant without doing your due diligence, there is an element of neglect because, these are things we're putting in our body and they do have an effect, whether that's straight away or long-term. There's just not enough data and testing to, substantiate it. So it is better to be safe in that case. With IFRA, there is kind of like a secondary component as well, which is not talked about as much, which is Annex 2, which is kind of like the cosmetics law in EU. Annex, where IFRA is a recommendation, Annex 2 is the law, so you can't go against it. So there is a list of materials that Annex 2 bans. Usually they're under the category of CMR substances. It is either carcinogen, mutagens, reprotoxicity. Again, some of this is politically charged, heated debate, or touchy subject as well. And, again, it's the government's way of limiting liability, and they're taking more of an extreme approach. And in 2027, there's a new proposal for a handful of materials to be listed into Annex 2. One of them is heliotropin, which is a very much loved material. When I saw this, I was telling my friends, this is big news, and they didn't care. They didn't understand. I think it will shake up the whole perfume industry. Heliotropin is one of the main odorants for heliotrope flower. It's also known as cherry pie flower, so it has this very almondy cherry note to it. But it's in a lot of legacy fragrances. Think of like Galan Le Bleu, and in any kind of almond or cherry note or accord, it would be used in quite a significant amount because there's actually no current restriction on it. One of your other main ingredients for the cherry note is benzaldehyde, but that's a lot more restricted. And there's not very many kind of molecules that can replace heliotropin. Not many that I can think of. Actually, there's paratolualdehyde, which is like a maraschino cherry, but yeah, there's not very many molecules that can replace it. Yeah, it's strange because it's a molecule that's been out for over 100 years, and all of a sudden it is proposed to being banned, and you're not sure what drives it. Apparently, it's listed as a reproductive toxicity.
Okay, yep. Okay. Hormone disruptor or whatever.
Yeah, so it sounds scary. Again, you got to take these things with a grain of salt. I think it's a shame. Even because, the data is a lot of it is kind of inflated. The testing they do is in magnitudes way above real world exposure, sometimes 10,000 to 100,000 times more than what you're actually exposed to. So, I think one of the other reasons that it might be in the spotlight is that heliotropin is actually a precursor for opium. But again, that's not new news though. It's a known thing.
As an extension of the nose training kit that we were exploring with Corey Weigel, we were able to, in the studio, have some hands-on experience with Trung guiding us to really understand some raw materials and then connect those to the finished product, which was an incredible way for us to continue to train our nose. Have a look as we explore the raw materials together.
All right, so this is Immortelle Absolute. All right, so this is my very first experience of this. I'm looking forward to this.
Right. I would not know how to describe that.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar note. It's quite multifaceted. It's got elements. So it has a very distinct maple kind of odor to it, comparable to fenugreek. And sometimes it's actually called the curry plant. It's also known as everlasting flower. So it's got a fenugreek element to it, that maple tone. It's also quite ambery and lavender-esque as well. It's a very dry material. The Absolute's very different to the essential oil. It has like this very gingery aspect. It's not really used in perfumery. It's more in aromatherapy. But yeah, very beautiful, kind of magical material.
That's a good way to describe it as rich. That is not what I
had
in my mind
what I was
whatsoever.
Anyway.
And again, same experience that I had before smelling the raw ingredient. Once I've smelt it and then I'm putting the blotter to my nose, now I'm starting to detect it.
And here's another one, another main kind of ingredient I brought for you guys to experience. This is Beeswax Absolute from Robertet. The Immortelle was from Maine. And contrary to what we think, it's actually not that sweet. It has more of a salty, it's not too animalic, but there is a kind of trace of it, but it's almost like a umami kind of quality to it.
Okay. Yeah, it's very complex. I like the smell.
Yeah, I mean, before you just described it there, I was expecting the honey type of smell, but yeah, you're right. It's actually not all that sweet.
No.
It's hints, but it's not honey sweet at all.
So in the actual fragrance, I've sweetened the kind of honey accord, and I've built a honey accord for the fragrance.
Wow.
In episode 19, we met with Purvi Joshi, who's the founder of Piosum, which stands for Personal Expression of Stories, Yearning and Memories. One of the things that we explored with Pervy was the perfume pyramid. So we've probably been learning this more and more as we went through different episodes, that the perfume pyramid, while it's a great way for people to understand the structure of a perfume, it's not how perfumery always unfolds. Take a listen as Pervy explains to us a little bit more about why her perfumes break the perfume pyramid.
In terms of how this fragrance unfolds, to me, it's not unfolding quite in that sort of linear manner that you might see from that traditional perfume structure. Is that sort of deliberate?
Yes, and that is exactly why we don't describe notes in pyramid structure as well, because what we are trying to do is create an atmosphere, and atmosphere does not progress in a linear manner. Like you enter, you notice few things first, but then you also start to taking in everything, and even the first things you noticed are affected by what's there in the background, and that's how we kind of approach the fragrances as well. So the notes are more like they would be written in the order of top, mid, and base notes, but they're not described as such because we believe that they will unfold like an atmosphere.
Interesting. And that makes sense. And it's certainly my experience of what I'm getting on my skin.
Now, as the season has unfolded, we have engaged with perfume brand founders, creative directors, perfumers, and a combination of all. Now, with Piosum, Pervy is a brand founder and creative director. And what we found really fascinating was the process that she took us through in engaging with some of the raw material suppliers, which you may or may not have heard of before. These are very large-scale French suppliers like IFF, Givaudan, Robertet, Firmenich, and a lot of people don't know what these houses are or what these suppliers are, but they are the businesses that actually supply the raw ingredients, both natural and synthetic, to the perfume industry. They also supply services in which they have master perfumers that work with brands like Piosum. Let's take a look now. So I think a lot of people who haven't done a deep dive into perfumery, so they might be aware of different perfume brands and they've experienced a lot of different perfumes. They might not know some of these resources that you've just spoken about here. So places like Givaudan or Firmenich, what are they when you refer to them? Like what is Firmenich?
Oh gosh, I've never thought about it. I ever had to describe these giants. They are the fragrance industry leaders in my mind. They are the main fragrance houses. They source raw ingredients, develop their own new ingredients. They have the best perfumers. And if I'm not mistaken, both of them are originally France-based companies. And they are global manufacturers for fragrances. And then there are also other houses like IFF, Simirise. And then there are smaller manufacturers in Australia as well. One of them we have worked with, Mombati Company. Others, I cannot recollect the correct name, so I would refrain from saying anything. But if you just reach out to different people, I think there are local Australian fragrance manufacturers as well.
Absolutely. It's always good to educate people on what they are, because sometimes we throw around names like IFF or Firmenich or Robertet or Givaudan.
Yeah.
These businesses or these they're not quite houses because they don't produce perfumes. They do have perfumers.
Yes.
They produce the raw materials that are supplied to most of the major perfume houses across the world. They are actually in control of the regulatory body being IFRA as well. So they all combine to sort of regulate that. Yeah. So they, which is quite interesting, to sort of self-regulate.
But I didn't know that. See, I'm learning something here as well.
And so if you're wanting to start a perfume brand, you need the raw materials. So you would go to places like this to get the raw materials in the first place. But as you've just explained there, you can actually also tap into the expertise of the perfumers, and a lot of these big perfumers that we know. I mean, you mentioned Frederick Moll. He would have been a byproduct of one of these large perfume businesses as well. So I love Frederick Moll, by the way. Portrait of a Lady, big fan.
So one of the best brands out there, especially when you look at fragrances as an art form. I think Frederick Moll range is like an art gallery.
We also had a really great conversation about perfume concentration and how the more concentrated the perfume oil is doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a better projection. Let's take a listen as we talk about this.
I've got to say, this has got some projection here. Like that's my hands there. It's glistening on my skin, which obviously it's quite a lot of perfume oil in here, and it is projecting. I'm sure it's absolutely filling the room, which is great. This is what we love to see out of great quality perfume.
And the concentration also plays a part, that because with gentler notes, you want to give them a little more body to grab onto that body heat and create a little more cloud around you. Concentration doesn't always predict projection and sillage, but it does affect, how it's going to smell, how much it will project.
This is a really interesting point that you've just touched on here, because I think a lot of people are under the impression that the higher the concentration of perfume oil that's in a fragrance, the more it's going to project and the longer it's going to last. But that's not quite the full story, is it?
No, that's not how always it will go. And think of it this way: ethanol is what makes it evaporate faster, and that's why you can smell an ethanol-based fragrance versus completely oil-based something. Because when you used oil-based fragrances, you kind of have to smell it closer to your skin. That's why your body moisturizer not going to project like your ethanol-based fragrances do. So that's the job of ethanol in your fragrance. And the fragrance oil part is obviously what gives it the fragrance part. And the more fragrance you add, the more potent it becomes. But when you decrease the ethanol too much, it's going to stop projecting that much as well. So currently what you're smelling in Gulal is at 25% concentration. So it is kind of a balance point where it gives fragrance time to breathe. It gives notes enough room to separate so you can smell different things and experience the whole atmosphere. And it also provides enough ethanol so that it can project a little bit. But it's not going to project so much where it fills up the room. The kind of fragrances, like some designer fragrances where they just project like an amplifier. That's like multiple things what's there in the fragrance. And it's not just mixed with ethanol. Sometimes they also have to add other things to make it project louder. And from the very beginning, we decided that we're not going to do that. I'm not going to go into reason because it's more technical and I'm not the best person to explain it. But I find it messes up with the fragrance as well. The notes will not separate as much. It will project like one heavy note fragrance versus what we like to do, just little elements of creating a different atmosphere. And when you change the concentration, the separation of notes changes. Like higher the concentration, you can imagine that the notes are more together, and the lower the concentration, the more separated they are. So you want to decide how much space you want to keep between your notes and how you want to project them.
So as you can see, we have learnt so much in this back half of the season. And when we have a look from episode 1 right through to episode 19, I'm absolutely staggered by the sheer volume of notes, perfumery terms, distillation and extraction techniques that we've actually learnt. And I'm amazed it's actually sticking, and we're really starting to learn quite a lot more about perfume.
Yeah, it is. It's really incredible how far we've come on our journey, right? And as we've said before, the more that you go down the rabbit hole, the more you want to go down the rabbit hole because there's just so much to learn. And we did have that conversation with a couple of perfumers along the way too, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the really important things for me that I got out of the season was we've always, I guess you and I have always sort of thought of as perfume as having to have a story. And while storytelling is extremely important, it's not the only dimension of perfumery. Story is one, but we can also be fine just to champion the ingredient itself. That's a story within itself where we're just focusing on championing that specific ingredient. So we've got story, we've got individual ingredients, but we've also got memory and we've got place. So there's multiple different aspects that can be scooped up in this sensory experience that can really trigger a sense of place, a sense of memory, how we feel, or how we might experience a particular note.
Yeah, and it was amazing to sort of hear from different perfumers along the way how that is actually part of the human brain. We process memory, scent, and connect it with memory. It's not just something we're saying. There's actually science to that.
Absolutely. We actually had a couple of really educated guests who took us through the process of how or the amygdala's role in interacting with perfume and stimulating memory. And there's a lot of science that is connected to our experience of perfume. So I think a real core lesson that we've got out of season 1 of the Olfactive Melbourne podcast is that while we've learnt quite a lot about perfumery, we still have a long way to go and there is a lot more to learn. And so we're going to be back with season 2 in 2026 in February of next year. Now, we're going to be back with more of these fascinating interviews with the perfumers and perfume brands, doing our masterclass and learning about not only the key perfume that best represents the brand, but the broader range. But we're going to go a little bit beyond that. We would like to get really hands-on with these individual ingredients because we've learned a lot, haven't we, from actually smelling and starting to train our nose. We would like to start to combine these individual notes and start learning the art of building perfumes and educating ourselves and in the process educating you as well.
Yeah, and of course, just like always, we are very keen on any feedback or suggestions. If there's any particular fragrances that you think any of the perfumers might want to come and talk to us about in terms of a masterclass or what have you, it would be great to hear from our listeners and our audience.
Absolutely. So we will be inviting back some of our guests from season 1. And as Robyn said, if there is a particular fragrance from their range that you would like to see them do a masterclass on, please comment below and let us know. Also, if there are particular perfume brands from around Australia that you would like to see featured on the show, let us know and we will reach out to those brands and try to get them on the show so that they can do a masterclass as well. We'd like to think that we know many of the Australian brands from around the country, but we know that we don't know them all. So if there's ones that we don't know about, we would love to learn more about them because we're all about Australian perfumery on this show.
And we're always super excited to explore new brands, just like all fragrance enthusiasts are.
So we have absolutely loved spending time with you on the show. Thank you for all of the likes, all of the support, all of the feedback. We have been tweaking the show as we've gone on based on your feedback. And you may have noticed that from episode 1 through to episode 20 today, the length of the podcast has been extended because you've been wanting a bit more detail out of the perfumers and we've done our best to accommodate that. Some of the call-outs that we've also had is that you would like the perfume podcast to be a little bit more interactive. And we'll let you know now, while we can't give it all away, we do have some plans in the works for making the podcast far more interactive, and we'll announce that in 2026 when we're back. So thank you so much for joining us for season 1 of the Olfactive Melbourne podcast. It has been an absolute privilege to spend time with you, to spend time with the perfumers, and we would certainly love to thank every one of our guests, all of the brands, all of the perfumers, and all of the people who have made this podcast possible, including our extraordinarily talented producers and videographers that are off screen right now, but make this perfume podcast possible. Thank you so much.
Until next time, thank you so much and have a happy holiday season. We hope it's filled with the scents that you love most.